recording. Okay, so yesterday we were talking more about a karpaf, so we're going to continue with that again today. Hey, Amadal and Eruvin. So karpaf, Yuter, Beit, Sabdayim, Shalo, Katladira, Uval, Ma'ato, Miato, Bilano, Lo Havimiyut. So if you had a karpaf, meaning the unusable, again, we're treating it as an area that's unusable at the moment, right? So if it's larger than a Beit, Sabdayim, and it's not set for living in, for residential purposes, and you wanted to make it smaller so that would be less of it at that time, so that way you could actually use it. So if you were to try to have less than the number of trees there, so if you try to reduce the size by planting trees and saying that that's not part of the karpaf anymore, then that wouldn't work. That would lessen the area of the karpaf. Okay, and then bana ba'amud. But if you were to have instead planted trees, that would have, sorry, if you had it, your trees didn't work. So then you tried something else. So we start building these platforms or columns that are 10 tvachim tall and are 4 tvachim wide. That would be considered to be a valid reduction of the area of the karpaf. But if the column is less than 3, then it's no good. But between 3 and 4, Rabba Amar Havameyut, the Rava Amar Lo Havameyut. So, and then if so in the between area, that's when we get to machloket. So now we're trying to figure out why is that. So Rabba Amar Havameyut, Taha Nafik Lamitar Lavud. So Rabba says it's considered to be a valid miyut because it cannot, since you're past the point of lava, therefore it must be a valid space. Rabba Amar Lo Havimiyut, Kim Lo Havimakom Arba Lo Chashiv. No, he says that's not because it's not yet a place that's for Tvachim wide, which is the minimal space for it to be its own separate makom, its own separate location, so that's why it's no good. So now we're going to say, let's try and figure out another way of dividing up a karpaf. So here's a kotel arba basa mechitza hoil. If you were to have been more than 4 tvachim away from one of the walls, and then you built a wall of 10, that would be considered to be a valid wall. Okay, here, let's look at here. We have here on the chance. Show the diagram, everybody. Remember to the diagram. So we're currently diagram number 103. So if you had made, you're trying to shrink your the area, and you decided to put a wall on the side there, right? Even though you didn't fill the whole area, and there's a gap of 4 tvachim between it and the wall, that's still fine. But if you put it within 3 of the wall, lo hoil, it did not help you. Rabba Amar hoil, Rabba Amar ino hoil. All right, so similarly, the question is whether or not this new wall you put up counts as a new wall, or just something that's subsumed into the previous wall. Comes down to the same talk we had about the size of the pillar. Where Rabba says, again, we're below 3 does nothing, 4 is good, and between 3 and 4 the same talk got Rabba and Rabba. So now Rabba Amar Ho, why does Rabba say it works? To have nothing later to our lava. Rabba says it works because it's no longer it's not lava. Once it's 3 and a little bit. So therefore it's a valid separate wall. Rabba Amar Enamoil, Kevan, Makam Arba, and Rabba says no, because it's not considered to be its own separate place. On the other side of the wall is not big enough. Therefore, it's not considered standing. So Rashimi Mani Lakula. So Rashimi had a more lenient version of this mahloket. He says that what is considered to be a valid wall is if you plastered it and it's able to stand on its own. Rabba Amar Havimiyut, Rabba Amar Lo Havimiyut. This is talking about we put up a wall with without having plaster. Normally, if you wanted to. If you're trying to do a proper construction, you want to make sure that the stones don't move or shift. Unless you happen to be, as good as the Egyptians in their masonry, where they can, build a wall that'll last for millennia, just without the use of any mortar. So most walls are made up of uneven stones that will not work so perfectly well without mortar, and therefore that's what they consider to be a right. So let's think of, let's say, have you ever seen like standard rock piles? So like that's what it is. So it's currently staying in place. Who says the wind won't come down and blow it over? The only thing you'll be sure that it'll be there is if you were to have put some mortar in between or plaster on the outside in order to make sure that it would remain where it's supposed to be. So then Rabba. Okay, so now we explain why that's the case. So Rabba Amar Have Miut Hashtag Mihakai. The Rabba says it works because currently it's standing. And Rabba Amar Love Miut came by the Loyachol make him Finathmo Local. Rabba says no, it's not going to be a miut since it wouldn't stand on its own. It's not considered to be a valid wall, and therefore it's nothing. So we're saying this comparison is analogous to the case that we had before of the three between the 3 and 4 case.
Rabbi, in this case of the wall being plastered, we're talking about when it's between 3 and 4 tefachim, right? Obviously, if it was 4 tefachim wide, then there would be no issue. Everybody would agree it's a wall. No.
No. This is not talking about the side. This is because one of the when you're putting in this not so structurally strong wall, you're attaching it to another wall. It's next to another strong wall. As you see, let's say this wall here, one wall was plastered, one wall was plastered, so you're attaching it towards that wall. Right, so that's the question. Meaning, it's not a question of distance; it's a question of structural integrity. So if we're comparing the difference in structural integrity to the difference in whether or not love works or being in place. So we're saying that it appears that that love could be more toward. So we're saying the structural integrity lines up with the difference between makom and love, which is interesting. That's what the Gemara is describing. It's on Pidyon Roshimi. So, okay, so great. So it's not an exact comparison, but then Machoka comes down in a similar fashion. So now we're gonna have another case. So if one is okay, so now somebody's on a hilltop. Here, yeah. So right, the tell is is a hill. Right, so there's a hill. We have a hill on the right over here. And then you decided to go four amud away, and then you built a wall. Right, we see that here down diagram 106. So if you would have done that, right, so that would be a valid separation. But if it's less than 3 and from the edge of the slope of the mountain So and still before, then they argue because within 3, they argue the same thing, which is, do you get this extra space from the wall, or we said this wall is part of the existing wall that was the tell? Because remember we said we were talking about tel mitlakeh, which is a slope of a sufficient sufficient gradient, meaning if it goes up in height 10 tefachim while a width of less than 4 amot, then that would be considered to be a valid. That would considered to be a wall. So we're talking
about the slope of the hill.
Slope of the hill, yes. So right, so that comes down to the to that. So to standard fist, Amar Hoil. So we can go from here that Rafisto says that that works and why, and that it would work and why. It mar hos mechitza gav mechitza. So Rafisto says it would work, as he states that if you made a mechitza on top of another mechitza, Amar Rafisto b'Shabbat hill, it would only work on Shabbos. right? It would work on Shabbos. Meaning, so the point being is that even that we're comparing the case of where your wall is is close to the wall but not directly on top of it. Because would say, why would you say that it works? Because you can compare it to the case of that we have here over here of Mechitza. I'll tell. And then in the case, we put a wall on another wall, right? Making it because basically, so since if you put a wall on top of a wall, it would work. So if you put a wall next to a wall, it should work in the exact same fashion.
Didn't we have in the previous Gemara saying that you can't put a wall on top of a wall when we had the going out to the water and we said the Nara, the bank, and that would be and you it wouldn't work because it would be putting a wall on top of a wall and it says you can't do that.
In this case, Rav says you can.
So he's going against that opinion that said you can't put a wall on top of a wall.
I believe so. Yeah. He's looking that you can. Okay, so there we go. So that was diagram 107. Mechitza. As far as how that works, we'll get to that sugya a little. That'll also come up again later. Okay. So now we're talking about here. So if you did a so the second half of the statement is because of Mechitza works for making a separation from Shabbos, but in terms of if you're trying to acquire the property of a ger, it would not work because it's not a significant enough action to actually make it your own. You need to have a more significant display of ownership. It's considered insufficient. Okay, and then Rav Sheshes says Amar Apashabat Namo Hoyel. And Rav Sheshes says no, if it is not working for purposes of being a sufficient wall for being pona the area from when nobody owns it, then it's not a good wall. So then that's it. So Amar Chista, Modally Rav Sheshes Sheimas Chitza Al Tel Shahoyel. We'll just say no. Rav Sheshes, who has an opinion that says that a wall doesn't work, so he would say that if it's on top of a tail, it would. So now we're like, my time, why would it work? Shouldn't we say that a wall and walls don't go to who cares what the two types are? No, why? Because why should we say that it works? Basically, because if a person dwells in the space between the two partitions, i.e., if he's standing on top of it, it will be right. So even though, why do we say that it works? Because basically when you put the wall on the mountain, so not only on the hill, so one question is, does it do anything for the field here, but for the hill on the side, it is beneficial because for them they had no wall from their perspective, and now they do. So therefore, you actually aided the rishus of the tell, and therefore we'll let you use it in both directions.
Rabbi,
yeah.
Are we still trying to find a way to minimize the karfif in order to make it manageable? I guess less than base Zichron?
Yes, we're still trying to do that. We just have gotten a little distracted.
Okay.
Whatever's a valid wall will also work for the Beit that time. That's what we're currently trying to figure out. Now we're trying to go into a little more about the other aspects. So now that we mentioned other things, we're going to go into those a little bit more. So we mentioned the mechitza by the tel. So we're talking about mechitza of the din of mechitza on the tel. So okay. So now we're going to try and continue on with the case of having walls on the tel. So by Rabba Bar Barchana. So what happens if the lower part of the wall fell down because let's say the ground was swampy, and the upper partitions are still there? So which wall remains? If you're talking about the question of that you require this for the property of the ger who drives out relatives, and nobody can take it. So basically, now have ger, and whoever takes it first can get it. So the Amar Yomi Avira, Amar Rav Yehuda, Haiman Zadeh Lifta, Apila the Arad the ger, Bat Yisrael Krina Rafak Baporta Batarakani Kama Lokani. So this case happened once, but Yomi Avira, as Yomi Avira called them Rav Yehuda, stating that if one had sown left out as a turnip, in the cracks we found land that belonged to a ger, and then another dude came and then plowed a little. So the latter one who plowed acquires it, the first one does not, because you need to actually have done an act, a sufficient act, not just a temporary one. In order, meaning is simply the act of working with the cracks is sufficient, but plowing is considered to be a sufficient action. So this is saying that the walls fell down and they ended up being the right thing. I think that's not sufficiently active enough of in order to acquire for the ger. So now my time, why is it insufficient? Right? Because the issue is that when he planted it, right, he did not do anything to help the land when he did so. So therefore, that won't allow you to acquire the land. And when it doesn't root, because when the turnips grow, they turn over the earth, or now it goes from being a plain field to being a field of turnips. Yeah, but like that's not sufficient. That's too slow of a change. You need a faster change. So rather, you let the Shabbos the problem of mechitza of being made on Shabbos. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the topic of mechitza on Shabbos. Tanya was learning right. But we said that any mechitza made on Shabbos is considered to be a, whether you do by accident or on purpose, is considered to be a valid wall, a valid partition. So should that mean that the upper wall should work for the karpaf we're talking about? Lavit mar Allah. No, that's wait. Didn't we have more explicitly in the name as stated by Amar Nachman Lo Shanu El Izrak Al Daltas? No, that's actually well, that's not really true, because we had a similar case where we said that when is this mechitza sufficient? Only for the case of zrika, meaning that for throwing things from place to place, not from actually carrying from place to place. Kidmar Rav Nachman, amazing. Rather, what Rav Nachman's talking about is where that's not valid, because Rav Nachman's case is when you deliberately added one. Right, so that's the difference. Is when you deliberately are making the wall, then we're not going to let you on a Shabbos. That's a problem. But let's say if all of a sudden somebody came and who was not Jewish and happened to build the wall because it was Saturday, so now time to build the wall that worked, then Rambam said sure. But the problem is that it was done that you intentionally did it, and it's us from Rabbanan to do so. That's why you can only be allowed to do Zrika, not Tiltal. So now we're going to some more fun cases. So so there was a woman who did one mechitza, another mechitza, in order to acquire the property of a deceased convert, and then someone else came along and plowed it a little bit. When they came before Nachman, maybe it be a day. And they said it belongs to the man who had plowed it a little. And then the woman comes and protests before Nachman. So Amar La, my abadlach, the lo malzak from saying like, what can I do for you? You didn't have to take possession of the property, the man didn't take possession, meaning you didn't. And then you're right, you were there first, but because your action wasn't a proper action for acquiring it, therefore I can't do anything to help you. I'm sorry. Okay. Karpev Shalosh Vekera Bo Beit Sa. So if one had now we're talking another way. Now we're back to our as Joel asked, we're going to get back to our typical daily programming. We're finally back to a story about about a karpaf. So a karpaf that is 3 Beit in an area, and then you decided to put a roof on top of 1/3 of it. So now you've got two. So now you have. So the question is, have you a little bit more than one of it? So would that have solved our problem or not? Because once something has a roof, it's no longer able to be a Rishut Harabim. For instance, if you had a covered highway, it is no longer considered to be a highway. Rakat Bakura is considered to be a problem for all Rishut Harabim. So here also should solve the problem of the Karpat being an Aser Carmelit, turning it into a proper Rishut Yafa for you to be able to use. So then, in turn, hopefully allows you the other half, the rest of the enclosure as well. So Rava Amar Avir Kirio Matir Matro. So he says. So Rava says that even though it is covered, because the total area is too large, it's still a problem. Rabbi Zera Amar Ein Avir Kirio Matro. Right. So, but Rabbi Zera says, well, once you put a roof over it, then no longer is it too large. Even though it's technically 3 Baits of accessible area, that would not be an issue in this case. So Lema Rabba Rabbi Zera Rabbi Plugi Dor Shmuel, the Rabbi Shmuel come Plugi. So let's say that Rabba and Rabbi Zera are arguing about along the lines of Machloket of Rabbi Shmuel. So now what's the Machloket of Rabbi Shmuel? Didmar Achsadra Bebeka. So now the case is of an Achsadra in a valley. So what is an Achsadra? So an Achsadra is actually is subject to debate. So it could be right. So let's see. We have a picture of the various. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So here we'll go with Achsadra here. Here. So for an Achsadra. So Achsadra could be right. Achsadra could be a nice pergola-like structure, an enclosed veranda. It could be it could be some sort of pergola type structure with a roof on top. It also could be a the upper half, as the Rashi says here, the chilek kaleo shalano. It means some sort of attic, right? Think like an upstairs porch overlooking something else, right? So answer the question. So we'll call it a veranda, just for our lead purposes. So Ditmar, if you made one of these inside of a valley, Rav Amar Mudlo Tatla Kula, Shmuel Amar Ein Metatflin El Barba. So Rav says you can carry in the whole thing because of this is considered to be a right. Even though there are no walls besides the structure that has no walls, it's fine because it has a roof that allows you to carry directly underneath this structure. Shmuel Amar Ein Metatflin El Barba. Shmuel says no, it's you only get the Arba Amo because it's not considered to make it a Zomer Shus. So Rav Amar Mutrat Al Kula. So why does he allow you to carry that underneath the veranda? Arina Pitikra Yor Visotim. He says that each of the walls here you see in diagram here. So you see the diagram 110. So it says that each of these edges comes down and seals off the wall. So say it's as if we actually have 4 walls here, even though we don't.
So are we applying the concept of roying there? Or is it good achas?
We're applying the concept of Pitik or Yorvizote. How exactly that relates to Rowan, I'm going to leave aside. But yes, it's a similar concept. Is that we say that we view the whole area as being a wall.
Okay.
So whether or not they work the same or not, that's right. So that can be debated. But for sure, we're saying here that as we were discussing Korah earlier, the way the Korah works is we said it's not a good question. Was it Mishum Mechitza or was it Mishum Heker? So this is according to the right. So this is according to the Svara of Mechitza that you say that it comes down and it seals it off. So Shmuel Amar and Metaltal and Ela Barba Amot, Lo Amrin Avitikri without them. And Shmuel says, no, you can only carry the Daladon if there's nothing there, because you don't say Vitikri or Visotem, you don't say that the edge descended closes it up, because that's just not how it works. If you don't have it, you can do that for one wall, but you can't do that for 4 walls. So Ida Avida Kiyasadra Hafinami. So they were saying that. So shouldn't we say that the machloket of Rav and Shmuel, which apply the same to our case of whether or not you were to have built this a roof? Because they're saying that this roof is the same as that veranda. Right, Varash is simply saying that you build a building with a hole with a gap underneath it. So again, so the point is that like again, the structure on top would be a valid structure, but underneath it wouldn't really be one. So what would we say? So it should be the same now. So instead say no, it's not. Why? Ki avda ki orzila. Right? No. Our case is different because it is made like a hammock, which means that it's sloped. And once it, do we have a photo here? 1 second. Here we go. So basically, because you made it slope in a way that's not a normal way for right, so you see the diagram. So like the Asadra looks a lot like what we had. Scroll back up. So over here, we simply put a roof on top of part of the enclosure of the karpaf, right? So, and now, right, we're saying that here, if you, I normally say that it should be the same. So the question by Urzala either means you can have it like this. So Tosfos says, as an Urzala, it says that it means that it's sagging like this. Rashi says that the point is that it's sloped all the way down to the ground, so there's no actual place where there's a P tikra Yorda Sotain because it hits the floor. So there's no way, like it's we say when it's slanted, we don't say once it's a slanted roof, we don't say P tikra over there the same way we would if it was a flat roof. Tosfot says again, you see the picture of the guy enjoying his nap. So that's what Tosfot feels that's the problem, is because you can't say there's a P tikra when it's because there's no proper edges that are hard edges. Instead, it's more this like weak, flimsy, floppy thing, which is not really. Basically, you had 4 poles. You put up a sheet on top of it. And you're like, ta-da! I built a roof. And no, you didn't. You just made a nice little hammock for yourself. But that's not considered to be a wall for our purposes. Okay, so Amar Rabbi Zeira. So there says everybody agrees that if you had a karpaf that was entirely opened and breached into a chatzer, that it would aster that you can't carry between the karpaf and the chatzer. My time chatzer meatro. The reason is because now we say that you add together the area of the chatzer of the karpaf, and now it's more than BAYT satayim. Magivla Rav Yosef. Hamutar lo asro. Wait, how does that make any sense? You're allowed to carry in the chutzner, so how does that make a problem for you in the rest of the karpa? So Amar Le, come on, Rabbi Shimon. Who is the according to Rabbi Shimon? To Rabbi Shimon Nami, how you got avir makom machitzo? So what about Rabbi? So maybe this according to Rabbi Shimon, who says that you can carry from a chatzner to a karpa in general. No, Rabbi Shimon Nami should be according to Rabbi Shimon also should be a problem, right? Isn't there the where are you allowed to carry? It's only the case where you see in the diagram here. This is only where there used to be walls you're allowed to carry. I mean, like over here, but not over here. So what are you talking about?
Isn't this a case of karfuf hukaf ledira, or is it not?
It's not, because the wall was nifratz on Shabbos.
Oh.
So it's not that
okay.
I didn't intentionally. If I intentionally built it this way, my chaser leading into the store into the karpaf, you're right. You'd have been fine. Problem is you didn't do it that way. That's why we're in AIDS issues.
Oh, so it just happened on Shabbos that it became open? Because it didn't say,
Or
the Gemara
during
doesn't
the
say.
week also. When it's such a nifratz, it means that it wasn't a deliberate action. It means there was a breach. Meaning like the
So you
wall
need
fell down.
kavana.
Not that like you then like, okay, I decided I'm gonna do construction now. I'm gonna build this out and it'll be in the structure. No, it's that you had an usher area and a mutter area, and then the wall came down. It was broken down between the two. But not that you'd actually. That's not considered to be a valid way of building for purposes of.
Well, because you're saying that when you build it, you have to have das, that you're going to build it as a karfif hukaf ladira, that's your intention, and if you don't, then it doesn't work.
Correct. You'd have, that's what we're talking about. If you build another wall, if you were to for trying to plant seeds, like you're trying to basically, you have the problem. You have the usher carp off, and you're trying to make it mutter now, and that's what all these hoops are for.
Okay.
Excellent question, Joel. Thank you. So okay, right. So that was right. So that's only the key place where the walls were prior to the breach. So key damar chesta karpav shenifrat below chazer. The Chazal says if you had a karpef that breached entirely into the chazer muter karpef asur. Says that you're not carrying the chazer, but you can't carry in the karpef. Chazer matama dit legefufe. So why does he allow you to carry inside the chaser? Because it has some room to the wall. But could you say the opposite, where the courtyard is narrower than the karpef, and therefore it's the other way around? Right. So you see the two different diagrams here. What is the karpef? Is the chaser larger, and therefore you'll notice because it gets narrower, and you see the little broken edge broken the wall edge. Or it could be the reverse, the carpet where with the chaser, you don't see the broken down walls because they're out of your range of vision because it gets wider as you go.
Well, sorry, Rabbi, we're talking about a karfif that is more than base hasayim, right?
Yes.
Because okay.
Correct. So what do we say the case is? Right. So Ela Mishum Damin on Zeh Avir Mechitza Miatro, Zeh and Avir Mechitza Miatro. The reason is because that when you add them together, the Chatzer adds to the Karpov area, makes it Aser, but the area of the Karpov has nothing to do with the Chatzer, and it won't Aser the Chatzer because it has its walls. So it's not going to be a problem. Okay, now we've got another fun case, which is going to involve a lot of good pictures. Okay, so again, here's the question of exactly how do you set up the set of the area. Okay, so now we're going to get to the case of an archer. Okay, so there's a certain orchard that is adjacent to the wall of the mansion. Nafal ashita braita da panda, and then one day the outer wall of the mansion collapsed. Sever bibi lememar lismacha gavaita. So Rabbi thought to say that you can rely on the mansion's inner wall to combine with the orchard to allow you to both use the house as well as the orchard. Somewhere later, puppy, since you come from a truncated people, meaning because you are a descendant of Eliah Kohen, Gadol, who is cursed for his sins in Shmuel. Therefore, you also said you speak truncated. And he said something that's wrong and short-lived, just like the curse to Eli was. So we said is really bad. You can't say that because these walls, right? The inside walls are made for inside for the mansion, whereas the outside wall, they were not made for the outside. So you can't combine the walls that were used to be internal walls with an external wall. They're two different types of walls. You can't compare them. So, and that's the problem. So now, how so now we're going to do another fun case where you had where the Reish Galuta, the head of the Jews in Galut, had a nice banquet pavilion, So the question is, so what is that? So that could either be a here we go. So that could either be a, according to Rashi, it says that it's a large tree with seating area beneath it. Alternatively, it could also be, I've got a picture for not here. Sorry, I would show you my deck. I have another book with more pictures, just I'm not sure where it is. But basically, I'll explain with words. Another option is that it's a, think of it being like a shaded pergola type structure, not necessarily with a tree, but with this setup, but also would think more akin to a pergola type thing. Again, utilizing the natural shade of the tree. And now the question is that we want to be, so either way, there's this nice shady structure we want to get to on Shabbos. So what happens? Amrle Ravhuna Ravhuna Barchinana Leabed Martakanta Lumachar Nechel Nahamta Hata. So the Reish Guta told Ravhuna Barchinana, do something that'll allow us to eat there tomorrow. Right? He's like, make whatever halachic thing is. Basically means that this avornica is inside of a karpaf, and we want to be able to access from the it from the place where we currently are. So Azal Abad Kana Pacha Mishlosha. So then what did he do? He decided to make a fence made of reeds that is less than 3 shekels apart. He decided to make loved walls between, in order to allow us to access the avornica. So the question is, so the machloket, there's going to be a machloket as to where did he do it and why was he doing that? So one option is that according to Rashi, where basically what he did is he lessened the total. He did it over one corner to lessen the area from Beit that time to make the whole area sufficient and the right size. Tosfot says that what he did is he would have put it on that he could have done it that way. Rather, he must have put the kanim on the side in order to knock out the area on the left, right? So again, if you wanted to put it to show the area. The other option is that what he did is he did it in order to, he basically made a path using the reeds, so that way. Right, so the house is basically number 131. The house is in the foreground, and basically you go straight on back there, and that's to solve the problem. So the question is, so what did he do? So that's machloket amongst Rishonim as to how exactly the formatting is. But either way, Rav Huna had this great plan that he was going to do with Chaim, and he did it. Then what happened is Azal Rabba Shalfinu. And Rabbi came along and he took them all out because he thought that it's usher to do that. It's an insufficient, whichever way that of the opinion that is mentioned. So that's insufficient in order to allow you to usage of the area. So also Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Braid Rav Yeshua, Naftinu mi Batre. And then Rav Papa and Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua went after and collected them, so allowed Rav Huna from Barchinana from doing it again. There were Rav students trying to help him out. The Malkar eat Ravina Larava. Then the following day, Ravina asked Rava the following question: Ir Kadasha, Modin La Mishuata, Vishana Michamata. Okay, so this is so. Okay, so this section is a little bit long, so actually I don't think we'll be able to. Okay, so good. So I'll be finishing the story tomorrow, just because it looks like it's going to be a little bit long, and I don't think we'll be able to fully give it the full justice. So tomorrow we'll start off with the story again, and then I will do it more in depth, hopefully. So in terms of this particular point, the question is of doing the kanim, was it to make a path to there versus lessening the area? That's the question. So depending on which one it is the question is whether or not is the story coming to support the idea of trying to lessen the total surface area, the total area of the karpaf, or is it simply coming to allow access, having very little, and within the story of Lovewood, unloved walls. So depending on whether or not the point purpose of the structure was to, again, if you put the cutting on the side in order to lessen the area, that would be to so that would imply that you're about lessening the area issue. And if you, and according to the, and according to the opinion that the diagram is of you're making a path, it's the point is that the question is, can I make a wall of a level wall and that'll allow me access to an area in the middle? So either way, that is what Rav Huna bar Chidron said, and then Rava and Rav Papa and Rav Huna Braid and Rav Yoshua decided that was not okay and pulled it out. That is something that you should word of advice, if you ever have an Eruv that you're not happy with, that this is definitely not the thing that you should do, as you will see from the end of the story tomorrow. But that is what they did. Again, we'll hopefully finish do this full story justice tomorrow. So now just to
clarify, what's on the sides leading to the tree, and also the entrance to that path? Is there anything there in diagram 131?
Diagram 131. So here, so we have there's the outer walls of the car pave, right? And the car pave is
pathway leading to the tree,
right? And then the mechitzat kanim, the reed walls are over here, and there should be a house over here in the foreground.
And is there anything at that entrance, that break in the wall that leads to the trees? The tree?
There should be a house potentially. We'll get to the right. So there's a house here. We're trying to relieve from we're trying to get access from. I mean, which we'll hopefully get into more tomorrow. So we're trying to get access from where everybody is now to there. The question is, the question also is, are you trying to allow carrying from that, bring food from the house into the garden and into the Musdina, is that what you're trying to do? Or are you simply trying to are you trying to mount the entirety of the garden, right, of the Karpov? Or are you simply trying to allow the area underneath where our Vorniki is? Like, that's the question. Like, what are we trying to do? Right? Are we accessing the banqueting pavilion? Right? So it's like, which thing are we trying to do? Is also subject to debate. So tomorrow, hopefully, I'll explain this whole story more in depth, and it'll
open cliffhanger. Okay, that's good.
Cliffhanger, yes. We got to the middle of the story. So again, we'll get into the basics of the structures of what it could be, and as far as the way the whole story plays out, and afterwards, hopefully, so we will get to that tomorrow.
Rabbi, why would there be a need to limit it to Beis Zion if there's a tree? Didn't we say tree indicates that it's a residential area, and then it could be as big as it wants to,
So that was the question of if you had an area, if you had a properly sized one, would this then make the area problematic? Comparing it to a case of if you planted it with seeds, they're saying that a tree would not render the currently allowed area to be forbidden. But that doesn't mean to say that the area that a tree makes an area that's forbidden allowed, because that's not the case.
But if you had trees there already, I thought like if we say a karfif has people in it, and one indication is trees, then you can have it as big as you want.
What we said is that trees will not forbid a karpeh. They don't monitor it either.
Oh, okay.
So that's what so then here the issue is that it's somewhere in between this. That's also because a Verniki might be as it's a large shady tree. So the question is like, is this considered to be a valid structure? So currently, the thought process of Rav Huna is that it is definitely not a full structure on its own, which is why he needed to do the wall, the kind of walls, or because that's also why he needed to lessen the area, because whatever the Vorniki is, it's insufficient. That's the problem.
But if there were many trees there, except not one tree, but trees throughout, that would be okay, right?
It would not be okay.
Oh, okay. It would not be okay.
Trees don't make it worse, but they don't make it better.
Okay.
Trees are just they're there and they're pretty. They don't really help us in this case, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent questions. Okay, so we'll pick up with the story of the Wernicke tomorrow. Take care, everybody.
Okay, Scott.
Yeah.